Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting back to order. And we are going to move to 2.31, Clean Energy Improvement Program.
Thank you. If everybody recalls, I had sent an email January 27th, I believe, to administration about a program, Clean Energy Improvement Program. A ratepayer in my area had asked about it. This is a program put on by the Alberta government that would allow, if we were to pass a bylaw, residents would be able to apply for a kind of a loan through the municipality to pay for clean energy projects like solar panels for their homes, things like that. So administration has been researching what would be involved with signing up for this program, but I just wanted to bring it to council to see if there is will to continue on with this program, or with the administration researching the program. The way it would work would be that a ratepayer would apply to us, and we would give them a kind of a loan, and then they would pay back the loan through their property taxes. And I believe it can be a very long-term. I'm not sure if there's an end, like how long the term of the loan would be. So, yeah, that's kind of the gist of the program.
Council's thoughts?
This is the same thing that was at the RMA zone meeting.
Yes,
right?
in District 2, they discussed it.
Yeah, the lawyers were talking about how it goes. I'd support it and review, get staff to give us a proposal for it. As long as it's on-site generation and not a bigger system. I've always been a proponent of on-site generation. I think is the most efficient use and without disrupting any huge land.
Yeah.
So this is all new to me. If the ratepayer gets the loan, does that loan stay with the property? Like I can't just go get a loan and then just walk away from it when I move?
That's exactly right. That's what I understand, yes. That if the property were to be sold, the new owner would take on that debt to us.
Okay, so okay.
Yep. Yep.
Would there be a limit to the loan? Like, is it a residential, or is it a business, or is it a development?
So through the REEV, we're still conducting the research, but from my understanding, improvements are available for residential and commercial properties and farmland as well. To the extent of the loan, I think that's up to the municipalities. So we're looking at best practices municipality to municipality to see what they've done. For example, we've looked at the city of Lethbridge. They have quite an extensive amount of funds appropriated to this initiative. So part of the challenge would be for a council to decide how much money in the budget we will appropriate to this, knowing that obviously there's payback over time, it rides with the land and all of that, but that's part of our research that we're going to conduct. So staff have undertaken a workshop, and we're going to undertake an additional workshop should council direct us to proceed later in the month from a finance perspective as well, to understand the financials behind it a little bit better. But there is I would venture a guess, I will say that loosely, that there is some leeway to move the amount of dollars that we can appropriate municipality by municipality.
And then I'm thinking that would affect our borrowing limit.
Does not.
I don't.
Not that we have much area out there now, but I'm just.
I had read that it doesn't actually affect your debt limit. It doesn't. What do you call it? The debt limit? Yeah, it's outside of that.
Because it's secured, I suppose.
And we can set guidelines, so there isn't something coming from the province that we have to do this and have to do this. It's our own guidelines.
So it's a provincial program through the REEV to Councillor Bigger. So through that, we're going to get some further understanding as to how much latitude the municipality may have. Right now, in my mind, to my understanding, as Councillor Laprise indicated, there is some latitude for the municipality to set the amount of money we appropriate. So that's something that obviously we would do internally, but we just need to get some better understanding as to what we have the ability to do as a municipality, keeping in mind that it's guidelines.
It's good to
from
learn
the
more
province.
about it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make one clarifying comment, then I'll go straight to you. So I should have clarified, Deputy CAO Boscariel had indicated that he's just looking for council support for them to further explore this. So we're not contemplating supporting the program today. This is new for a lot of us, and I have questions as well, but they'll likely be answered as administration investigates and dives into this. Deputy CAO Boscariel was looking for some council direction whether we should be investing further administrative time in exploring this program. Deputy Reeve Claassen.
I was going to suggest that at the RMA zone meeting, the lady, she was from our legal firm, she had a slide deck. They mentioned at the end that they could share it, so if you can get that and share it to everyone.
Absolutely.
It explained it really well. I was listening to it, and yeah, there's no debt limit, and like it really, financially wise, doesn't impact us, but it's an it's almost like a local improvement tax they were talking about. There's several different ways you can implement it, but it stays with the property if the person sells it. They can choose to clear up that debt at point of sale, but it has to be notified of the purchaser. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It was really well done. So,
Councillor Larison.
Oh, no, I was just making a point that Councillor Claassen had his hand up.
Thank you. I didn't know if you wanted to follow him. I
why-
had
that's why I
seen
did
him.
it
I
like
was
this.
just letting Councillor Laprise. I thought it was like him and then me. No, I love it. Like we can do interpretive dances. You can get my attention that way. Any other questions? So I'm just thinking, potential motion, and then if there's further debate.
Okay, so I'll move that administration continue to research the Clean Energy Improvement Program and bring results to future council meeting.
Questions or debate? Councillor Larison.
I would just ask that when administration reviews that, when you're looking at the financials, look at both the financials for the county and the financial viability of the program for the consumer, as in, the cost of whatever the clean energy is and what the residual value would be when the loan is paid off and stuff like that.
That may be challenging, just because there would be a lot of assumptions that would have to be made to report on that. It might be outside the scope. Administration can speak to that. I don't know if you would be able to address that.
Absolutely. I think we can endeavor to undertake that, and we'll see what we run into, but we certainly will do that.
And that's why I said look.
Yeah.
Because you might look and find out that's outside scope, but it would be worthwhile to look at it at least.
And I just see that as being not our role.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
too. Like, I think
If a
the
homeowner wants to do it, I guess it's not our really business, but
the ratepayer would be responsible for applying for the program and determining if
understanding
it's
it. Yeah.
of value to them. I have lots of questions. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to more information on it. Any other questions or debate? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks for bringing that forward. Now we will move to 2.42.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. So on page 121 of your agenda package is the Council Resolution Tracker. Anything in green, Administration has deemed complete. Anything in yellow is deemed as ongoing. The report starts on page 124. Are there any questions about the report?
Any questions from council? If not, a motion to accept the tracker as information.
I'll move that council accept the council resolution tracker report dated February 15th, 2022 as information.
Councillor Laprise has moved. Any debate? All in favor? Motion is carried. Now, also, my apologies, I also missed 2.41. I should have, again, looked at my paper agenda and I missed the tab. Division 1 Councillor Attendance, Alberta Seniors and Community Housing Association. So we're gonna pivot back to there. 2.41.
So, yeah, this is on the paper agenda, but not maybe on, anyways. This is so
I'm gonna make another tab. I'm just joking, sorry to interrupt.
So the Alberta Seniors and Community Housing Association is having a conference in April in Calgary. And so it goes from Sunday, April 10th to Wednesday, April 13th. I would be interested in attending. The Wheatland Housing Management Board has asked that members who want to go approach their council to see if there'd be willingness to pay for the conference. So I'm here to do that. The conference costs $675 and plus the hotel room, which is $119 a night for 3 nights. And then there would be an evening, 2 days, and 1 half day per diems. There are 5 education breakout sessions, which would be my primary interest in attending. Sadly, they don't have topics for those sessions yet, but I anticipate that they would be useful to my role on the Wheatland Management Board, Housing Management Board. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Councillor Laprise?
I would just make a comment that I was at that meeting as an alternate, and the Wheatland Housing Board feels strongly enough about this that should we decide not to allow that, they're going to pay for it. So I think it's fairly important that she attend on our behalf.
Now remind me historically, is this is the typical historic, like the main ASHA conference? And the Housing Board has typically paid for that, historically? Okay.
I think Housing Board's passed a pretty lean budget this year. We've had consultation. We've done some work on our reserves, and they are probably lacking too. So yeah, it was just brought up that it would be nice if municipalities would support their board members in attending the conference. So this year it's in Calgary. Can't ever remember being in Calgary before. I'm thinking it must have been at some, usually up in Edmonton. So there's three board members from have the opportunity to attend if they want.
There's a motion on the floor. Nope. Thank you, Shanna. Do we want a motion on the floor for consideration, then we can debate, or are there questions around the agenda item prior to putting a motion on? Do you have a question?
Sir, yeah, is this for 1 attendance or 3?
Possibility of 3.
And the Housing Board used to pay for this and they're not now. And the Housing Board used to pay for this and they're not now.
They
Probably would anyway. And just add on to our deficit. Municipalities support the Housing Board through requisition.
I'd like to see some history, like previous years, what we've done.
I think I can confirm, I did attend this once, I think. I don't believe the county has ever paid for this convention. We do have a provision within the council remuneration policy that you can bring forward a convention, or I forget the language, or a conference for consideration by council. Council would have previously, if I recall correctly, covered the per diems and possibly mileage as your sort of board member responsibilities, if you will. But I don't mind, I would I don't think the county has ever covered this conference before. Councillor Kester?
I think to the years I've been on the housing board's always paid for the conferences. And it's just this year that there was an ask that maybe the municipalities would support it. That's all it is an ask. It's on a go, you can still free to go for sure, but it is an expense for the housing board.
Just a point of clarification, Glenn, is the housing board asking for us to pay for 3 or just for Shannon?
I'm registered to go, and I believe, Shannon, are you registered to go?
Oh, I see, okay. So there would be 2.
So I think likely Councillor Laprise brought this forward because the agenda item just does say Division 1, but I think we're, like, if I understand correctly, the housing board was asking the municipalities to cover for any board members.
Correct.
We have 3 board members appointed. I don't hear Councillor Eichert. You're not registered to attend? Okay. So it would be, it will depend what the motion comes out as. On the agenda, it was for Division 1 councillor. We can certainly, there could be a motion for any board members who are willing. Or who are interested, I shouldn't say willing, who are interested in attending the conference.
What if we did just a thought compromise of we'll pay for one. If anybody else wants to go through the board can pay for any one other than one. I don't know. Just a halfway kind of thing because it's new.
I was going to wait until there's a motion on the floor, but I can just make a comment now. From an equity perspective, my preference would be, like, I have no issue with us supporting it, but it would be conditional on all municipalities, like, funding their own, because it would be disproportionate for us to fund our councillors and then for the housing board to fund other registrations.
That's a good point.
So it would actually be more fair to ratepayers if either all municipalities are funding their own attendees or the board is, and then it's done based on requisition.
So I can respond to that. I believe in our meeting, one of the other councillors was not given permission by her.
So the housing board will be funding
Yes,
them?
this other person,
Okay.
yes.
So for me, I think it's more equitable. And this is, just so I'm crystal clear, I think there is value in the conference. This is a dynamic situation. There's a significant bill that's just awaiting proclamation regarding housing in Alberta with substantive changes. I'm guessing you're going to see that addressed at this conference to a large extent. Certainly a significant issue. Fully support the attendance at the conference. I'm just trying to most fairly steward tax dollars.
So shall I make a motion then that council approve attendance at the conference?
I think that would be good, and then we can debate and make a decision.
Sure. I'll move, I'll move that 2 councillors attend the Alberta Seniors and Community Housing Association Conference from April 10th to the 13th.
And that Wheatland County Council pay
Per diem.
or fund the cost of the conference, lodging. Like, if you put that motion on the floor,
Okay.
I mean, you can put whatever motion you want.
So what happens? So if I say the whole thing and people don't want them, we'll vote
Yeah, you could
against
say
it,
to cover the cost.
And then we'll bring it back for a new motion just for the attendance?
Looking to CAO Henderson, I don't think I have the policy. Do we need a motion to cover the per diems if they're attending? Like, if the housing board is covering the cost of the conference and the lodging, would we need a motion to cover per diems if they're attending as board members?
We should.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's been historical practice. I think realistically at this point we're covering meetings like regularly or special meetings scheduled by the board.
Okay.
This would be kind of a conference outside of that.
Perfect. So you have 2. I mean, you could read the room.
Yes, exactly.
And just put a
That's kind of what I
motion.
was doing.
Yep, you absolutely could to cover any or any council-appointed representatives to the board for their per diems and mileage for the conference, which has been historical. Or you could try the whole thing and see how that falls.
Well, I guess I'll read the room.
Okay. And I mean that like in the most respectful
Yes.
manner possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I don't know, do you want me to start again? I'm the most awkward mover.
Do you want me to try? And would you like to consider moving that Wheatland County Council fund the per diems for any Wheatland County Council appointees to the Wheatland Housing Management Body Board to attend the ASHA conference April, was it 8th through
10th to the 13th.
10th through 13th, to cover per diems and mileage?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Open the floor to questions or debate. And did I miss, is that okay, Brian? Did I miss anything?
No,
For CAO Henderson, sorry.
I believe that that covers it.
Okay. Any questions or debate? All in favor? Motion is carried. So you don't need a motion for the housing board stating that we wouldn't fund the conference. You can just let them know that.
Oh, I imagine I can just tell them that. There was no motion from the other member.
Okay. I just didn't want you to be
Or
in
no,
a pinch like needing to register. So, motion is carried. We do have a 10:30 appointment. Are all of your members here? Do you mind if we start just a couple of minutes early? Okay. Good afternoon. Just in terms of process, typically presenters to council have 10 minutes to present. We can make an exception to that, but we need to have council consensus to do that. And we just ask that anybody who speaks, if you can speak at the microphone, there's a button to push. As long as the red light's on, then the microphone is picking up. And if you can just state your name for the public record. And our meetings are recorded and maybe posted to social media. And welcome.
This screen right here is controlled by there. It's an agenda package, so just scroll up and down and you should
You want me to move it? So how do I move it? This way?
just with the scroll button. And then just click on the screen and then just scroll down. There you go. All right.
So, good morning. I'm Carolyn Steves. I'm the chair of the Vault Cultural Collective, and I would like to thank you very much for offering for us to make a presentation to you this morning. We have 3 board members with us today, and I'll introduce them in a bit. So here we go. So you can see on the first slide, this is our logo. We're very proud of. Kevin Munchrath helped us significantly with this. Our journey began almost 20 months ago. I was counting on my fingers on the way out in the car. Our first meeting that I went to was in August 2020, so our journey has been a 20-month journey. Let's see if I can move this now. There we go. So over the course of the 20 months, we have developed into what we are today. We have 6 members, nonprofit members, that are part of the Vault Cultural Collective. Arts in 817, which is a concert program that's run out of Strathmore United Church. The Strathmore Performing Arts Festival, which is a non-competitive festival that happens in Strathmore and will be happening soon in a month or so. The Strathmore Children's Choir, which right now is not operating because of the pandemic. The Strathmore Theatre Players Guild, which has been a long-running organization in our community providing theatrical productions. The Wheatland Society of the Arts, which is an organization that has a building in downtown Strathmore that provides many services to many clients of all ages. And finally, the Western District Historical Society, which has been a long-time organization in our community, protecting the history of our community. We recently had the Chestermere Fine Arts Guild join our group as well. Our board members, myself, as I just said, I'm the the chair of the Vault Cultural Collective, and on the board I represent the Strathmore Performing Arts Festival. Danelda Ledeen, if she just wants to raise her hand. She's the vice chair and represents Arts in 817. Jet Brown, if she'd like to just raise her hand, is our secretary and represents the Strathmore Theatre Players Guild. And our treasurer, Rhonda Stockwell, if she just raised her hand, represents the Wheatland District Historical Society. We also have Lynn Fair representing the Wheatland District Historical Society, Brandy Hebbs, who represents the Wheatland Society of the Arts, Laura Lee Laycock, who represents the Strathmore Children's Choir, and Caitlin Warwick is on our board as well, as the building is currently owned by the Warwick family. Our mission over our 20-month journey has come down to provide our community with a central resource dedicated to the promotion and enhancement of historical and fine arts initiatives. It took us a long time to craft that mission statement, but we are indeed very proud of it. We actually were incorporated in this 20-month journey on May 19th, 2021. We are located, as I'm sure you know, at 136 2nd Avenue in an historic building in town. When I moved to Strathmore almost 42 years ago, it was the Strathmore Standard. But prior to that, it was a Union Bank and a Royal Bank. It became the Strathmore Shoe Shop, and the Warwick family bought it, extensively renovated it, and now we are the proud inhabitants of that building. This is a work in progress. We have tried to evolve ourselves as a center for the arts. We're supported by nonprofit groups, philanthropists who have donated money to the initiative. The local government, the Strathmore Lions Club, has donated money to our group, and volunteers. I think, Rhonda, if I'm correct, we have 11 volunteers right now that are helping. We are all volunteers, none of us are paid, that run the building from 10 to 4, Monday to Friday. The project is intended for local and surrounding communities, hence why we are presenting, and thank you very much for that at your board meeting. The future will require the gifts, talents, and desires of many, our vision. This is some pictures of inside our building right now. It's quite transformed from the days when I was here 42 years ago when it was the Strathmore Standard. Some of the infrastructure you see in the building was left by the shoe shop, and quite a bit of the infrastructure we have created ourselves. We're very proud. The picture on the left is the downstairs on the main floor, and the picture on the right is upstairs. There is also a basement that has a very cool vault, I must say. These pictures are from the upstairs. We are offering the upstairs of our building for rent. We have had some Strathmore Theatre Players events in there at this point, and we've had some yoga classes in there. Am I forgetting anything? No. And we've had inquiries from our MLA, from, I think it's called the Badlands Search and Rescue group. Some people who are interested. We actually had some interest for a wedding to be hosted in our venue. As I said earlier, the vault opened, soft opening on July 15th, so not that long ago. We are selling art. We're selling tickets for local theater things, Arts on 817 at the moment. We are a place for people to directly we're hoping that they'll be able to collaborate with other performing arts groups. We are holding rehearsals already. Strathmore Theatre Players, for their upcoming production of Mamma Mia, are holding rehearsals in our building, workshops, meetings, social gatherings, and as I mentioned earlier, we've even had yoga in that place as well. We are hoping that we'll be a drawing card for people in the downtown of Strathmore, and the town of Strathmore considers us part of their downtown revitalization. Currently at the Vault, we have a high school art show that we're very proud of. If some of you may know, I taught at Brentwood School for 40 years, and I'm a longtime supporter of the arts, and I was thrilled that our first show, on the recommendation of Danelda, who is also a longtime teacher, to have this high school art show. So we're very, very proud of being able to champion our young artists. We've had some play readings. Arts in 817 had a concert in the park in September of Cabot Crossing. Like I said earlier, we've sold tickets. We are very proud to be involved in an initiative out of your building, the Women's Conference that's going to be coming up soon, and our Strathmore Theatre Players and Strathmore Performing Arts Festival are going to be providing a concert from 11:15 to 12 o'clock on that program. We are also very proud that we've joined the Wheatland Interagency Council and the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce. We have many plans. We have very grand plans. We are very good at planning. So we're hoping to expand the rental of the building, expand artists working in the building, demos, artists in residence. We're currently running a membership campaign. We're hoping to do programming once COVID is a little bit more forgiving for that sort of things. We want to have concerts, pocket concerts, speaker series, outdoor concerts, all kinds of things we're planning. And we've been working with the Wild Rose Community Futures, and they're helping us develop a business plan and further sustainability. We have lots of things we'd like to do with the building, as I've already said. We need to keep working on promoting and making sure people know that we actually exist. We'd love to hire staff. Right now, we're all volunteers. And one of the drawbacks of the building is that access to the second floor, and we would love to be able to put a chairlift in to do that. We're hoping that people will individually volunteer, become a member, attend events, shop at the vault, share information about the vault, bring an event to the vault, and make a donation to the vault. And since we're here, your ability to help us out would be significant. You're already helping us because you're the provider. Your insurance provider is our insurance provider, so thank you very much for that. You could support us in your recreation and cultural budget. You could bring an event to our upstairs, which would be fabulous, and you can make a donation to the vault, which we'd be very gracious for. Here's our membership plan. We have various kinds of memberships: nonprofit memberships, business, individual, artist, emerging artists, and volunteer memberships. And we were very thrilled to give our volunteers memberships and all our emerging artists that are displaying at the vault right now a free membership. So they were tickled with that. This is a picture either I or Rhonda's sister took one night at the vault. We love this picture. And our contact information is on this final slide: our phone number, our web address, and our email. So thank you very much for letting us present today. I hope I was fast enough, and I hope I provided you with all the information you needed.
Wonderful, thank you. I should have added that we do have a provision for extra time for questions at the end, so if
anyone has questions, I or one of our board members could answer. I would be thrilled to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
See, Rhonda, she's plugging membership already. Oh, blame it on someone else on the board.
I have one question. I didn't notice Hope Bridges Society, whose sort of mandate or sort of their tagline is belong, create, connect through the arts. I didn't notice them on your board or in the groups that are included.
Yes.
Is the Vault Cultural Collective inclusive?
Yes, we are absolutely inclusive, and I've actually had significant conversations, myself personally, and the board has, Sheila's actually been to our board meetings, and so they are contemplating joining the Vault. So yes, we're absolutely open to any nonprofit organization. We have obviously historic and cultural bent, but no, we would love for them to join. Communities in Bloom is thinking of joining our organization. So we've been approached by different organizations, actually. The Hospice Society as well has been thinking of having meetings. So there's been a lot of talk with a lot of organizations, but currently it's the 6 that were on the slide, and just recently the Chestermere Fine Arts Guild that have actually joined.
Okay. Any other questions?
If we were going to have a meeting there, how many people can you accommodate?
Upstairs, our seating capacity, I believe, is 52. With COVID, it would be a third of that, obviously, because that's but those guidelines are being dropped, I believe. I'm not sure what they are right now. Downstairs, it's a little less. But yes, meetings can be held. The high school's thinking of having an event there. We've had, like I said, we've had lots of inquiries. Yeah. We do have tables, we do have chairs, we do have some infrastructure. Yeah. Shop.
That's fantastic.
Yes, our fun. Yes. That's why I brought these ladies, because they'll fill in what I didn't say.
Any other questions? Well, on behalf of council, thank you.
Thank you very much for
If you
having
want to leave
us.
your brochures, we'll make sure that they're circulated, or if there's additional ones. We do display pamphlets for different organizations in the region in our in the vestibule, in the entranceway as well. That's a good way to raise awareness. And if there's council support, we can also share on our social media or website if there's events and that type of thing, just to amplify things that are happening. I sure appreciate the volunteer hours and the commitment and the passion that's going into this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps a motion to accept the presentation as information. Councillor Bigger?
No, I was
Oh, sorry.
making sure she left the brochures. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Larison has moved to accept for information. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Great morning. Feels
You're a
like
bit ahead of
afternoon.
yourself now.
I know, totally. I'm just really making sure I'm not missing anything. I believe we are on 2.43. Meeting with Minister of Transportation at the RMA Spring Convention.
Yes. Good morning, Council. Brian again from Administration. I did receive an email from the schedule from the Minister of Transportation for a potential meeting with the Minister of Transportation at the Spring RMA Convention. So these are very normal kind of emails that come forward from various ministers that send out emails to CAOs to advise their council that these types of meetings are available during the time. As council may recall, we have, I think it could be 15 to 20 minutes to meet with the minister about specific topics. The minister did ask, or the scheduling assistant did ask if there was any topics that council would like to discuss with the Minister of Transportation. Historically, we have met with the Minister of Transportation, and this was Minister McIver when he did oversee that portfolio. This is a new Minister of Transportation as of 2021. I'm not sure the exact month, but there are some interesting topics that I think that administration would recommend bringing forward. One would be funding of our West Side Servicing, either project or at least study. We have had meetings with some Alberta Transportation employees already just based on this program and what we could kind of see fit. It would be, I believe, advantageous to bring this to the minister's attention and why council feels like this is a very, very important program for the county and our sustainability in the future. So that would be one topic I do have. I'm sure other councillors have transportation issues in their divisions as well they'd like to bring up to the minister. So that was just the point. And if I can get potentially 3 topics from council, then we can schedule that appointment if council does want to make one. Thank you.
Councillor Precinct, then Councillor Kester.
I've heard from ratepayers that they are interested in having Highway 842 paved. I think this has been brought forward.
May or may not
perhaps.
have met on this.
We might
half
as
a dozen
well
times.
float that out there, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know. Might be a topic.
Duly noted. Councillor Kester.
Yeah, and that 842, are we still of the opinion this council? Previous councils said if the province paved it, we would take it over. That was our deal for them. I don't know if that's still our position or not.
Councillor Larson.
I think I would maybe put forward that we have a broader conversation with the minister regarding secondary roads and how they fit into the county and provincial transportation plans, so that we can talk about, rather than just pick 842, we talk about all the secondary roads within the county and how they fit, how they fit into our thing and what we can do to work together to make sure they stay in good shape. Because 842 is just one of several secondary roads in this county that really need some work. And I think that stretches from west to east.
I had one other comment.
Of course.
Recently, last summer, the paved Highway 21. and they put a light and a flashing stop sign on the 564 going west of the 21. On the east one, there's no light and no flashing light. And it makes quite a difference. I'm just wondering if they would comment on why the difference. They're 2 miles maybe separated, maybe 3, I think only 2. And it would be nice, because I got a couple of questions. The one with the light makes quite a difference. I'm surprised on the safety aspect of it. If we could ask them about that at the convention, that would be one topic I could. And it would give us an opportunity to thank them for. I didn't hear any complaints on paving that road. It was a big project.
If I might propose something, what if each councillor, if we set a deadline of February 22nd, we could each submit any transportation-related issues within our division that we think merit a discussion with the minister, submit those to Brian, who with the transportation department could review them. Perhaps if in addition the transportation department could sort of review our transportation network and identify what you might advise within your department might be our top priorities to advocate to the minister for, based on sort of historical feedback. I know we've developed sort of a matrix for our own internal use. I don't know if we could apply that to sort of the provincial roads, that type of thing, because it sort of led some structure to prioritizing transportation issues. And then because the RMA convention is March 4th, except what date do you need to have? I missed one piece in my mind.
By the end of the day today. So
Okay.
what
Could we, or does transportation have any recommendations? I guess we could just start there on like what our top priority sort of lobbying points might be.
I mean, currently there's a number of opportunities. I would want to take the opportunity to take it back to our operations manager as well to ask. I don't know if there's an opportunity to do that by the end of the day and then come back.
Would council be open to just, and then councillors can also just sort of go through your files, and if there's a specific issue, and we could move this perhaps to, say, just following correspondence, come back, like table this until then, come back to this, general manager, oh my gosh, I don't want to say Brad. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Didn't want to say your first name. Could make some recommendations on prioritizing, and then council could prioritize. Just given that we have 3 issues that we need to submit, we know these conversations are organic, so I mean, we can raise other issues as well. But I want to make sure that we're prioritizing sort of the top issues to the minister.
Could I just ask a question as a newbie? So we're talking to the Minister of Transportation, but you're suggesting the West Side servicing. Like, how does that tie into them?
So there are grant funding programs available that are administered by Alberta Transportation. So kind of any opportunity that we get to advocate for a grant that we're going to submit would be ideal, because I believe it is ultimately the Minister of Transportation that does approve the grant at the end, like that comes across their desk and they actually approve that grant. Okay. So ultimately, if we are making a significant capital investment and we have an opportunity to get, say, 50%, 75%, depending on the grant eligibility, I just personally believe it would be wise to bring that one forward.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, good question. Councillor Kester.
I believe, is it still Minister of Transportation does grants for anything in the ground, and above the ground, Minister of Infrastructure does, or something? There's it's not a fine line, but there is 2 ministries too, right?
The specific grant that we are exploring for West Side servicing is administered by the Minister of Transportation, or the Department of Transportation. So that's the reasoning for our recommendation to move that one forward, or suggest that as a topic for discussion.
Deputy Clausen.
Yeah, thinking about this, I mean, we talked previously about things, the road you were talking about, but I know a lot of people in my area, the 264 interchange on the highway is, which is Lyalta Road. Someone's going to perish there at one point. Highway 24, we've heard many different versions of what's actually going to happen there. I'd like to know what's going to actually happen there. at some point in the future. Those are just things that I can think of.
Sure, take all my thunder.
Oh,
Because Highway 24, with its new realignment, I think becomes a sort of a dead piece of roadway, right? Because who's going to, unless you're going into Carsland and servicing Agrium and that kind of stuff, like.
So what I was told was Highway 24 goes straight to 901.
Right.
And that other one becomes
Right.
817.
So I think we need some clarification on what, because that's going to be an expensive piece of road to maintain, because there's still going to be an awful lot of commercial traffic on that road servicing the area,
There will be
the Goldfinch
some.
industrial area, right? So, yeah.
Don't forget to thank them, though, for doing something about that road. It was fairly bad road.
Councillor Kester?
Yeah, I think the agreement was when they realigned that we would take over that portion of the road and they would pave it and fix it up. They paved it a couple of years ago and it needs fixing up again. Really, it's not a good road to start with. And with the extra traffic that was piling up on the end of it, maybe we should even be asking the province to reconsider keeping that road because of the development that's there and potential going there.
So if there's some appetite from council, we could do a motion to postpone to a certain time. Procedural bylaw permits postponing to later in the same meeting, or at another meeting we could just postpone to following our correspondence, and then that would give transportation some time and individual councillors to review your files. Councillor Larson?
I would move that we postpone this till directly after 3.1 in the agenda.
Perfect. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. I'm also going to ask permission from council to consider another amendment to the agenda. I did receive an email from Minister Sani's office late yesterday afternoon, and I completely meant to add this to the agenda this morning, and I forgot, inviting myself to attend the provincial budget at the legislature on February 24th, and so just looking to if council would like me to attend on behalf of council. If we could consider that, perhaps we could consider that. This will give you some time to contemplate this. If council would consider an addition under, probably shouldn't go under correspondence, but yeah, business arising, but do it after 3.1. We should have a motion to amend the agenda if council is willing to do so. I think it would be 2.32.
Also move.
Councillor Brigger has moved. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. The liberty to consider that. We will move to 2.44, Assessment Review Board, new member appointment.
Good morning, Council. Tracy from Administration. A housekeeping item for you, and that's to appoint 2 new members to the Assessment Review Board. As you're aware, we had a resignation and leaving a vacancy, and so we advertised in the Strathmore Times, Drumheller Mail, and county social media platforms for a period of a month and received 2 applications. And so we're asking Council to appoint Blaine Crapson and Jack Hibbs as members of the Assessment Review Board for a 3-year term that ends February 15th, 2025.
Council's wishes.
Just one question. We had one person resign and we're hiring 2 people. Were we short one person?
We're recommending an extra because when we have advertised before, we've either had no one apply or last time we had one person apply. So I don't think it's going to hurt to have an extra member. And then if we do have a complaint and perhaps someone's on vacation, can attend, you have at least an extra.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And our bylaws don't preclude from having that additional person. Perfect. Council's wishes.
I'll make the motion that council appoint Blaine Crabson and Jack Hibbs as members of the Assessment Review Board for a 3-year term that ends February 15th, 2025.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.45.
And again, another housekeeping item, and that is the MSI. The province has extended that for 2 years, and so we have an agreement that we need a motion authorizing the REEV to sign the memorandum agreement effective February 1st, 2022, and extending it by 2 years. And after those 2 years, it will be replaced by the local government fiscal framework.
Council's wishes.
I'll move that council authorizes the REEV to sign the Municipal Sustainability Initiative amending Memorandum of Agreement effective April 1st, 2022.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.46.
Good morning, Rcmp Council. Matt Piscario from Administration, here to present a housekeeping item of appointment of fire guardians found on page 140 of your agenda package. The list is in the resolution. These names are the same from the previous year. We just appoint them yearly through resolution of council. Available for any questions.
Council's wishes. Councillor Larson.
I'll move that council appoint the following individuals as fire guardians for Wheatland County until March 1st, 2023. Dean Young, Jordan Meyer, Chris Perman, Michael Van Harlem, Diane Bodie, Cindy Ramsey, Thomas Ukes, and Michael Bourgeon for Wheatland County staff. Albert Jensen, Dallam Fire Protection Association. Ryan Houseworth, Carsland Fire Department. Mark Duguay and Malcolm McKinnon, Standard Rural Fire Association. Ron Welcher and Brad Williamson, Gleason Fire Department. Art Hudson, Craig Nelson, and Lucas Siristy, Rosebud Fire Association. Mike J. I'm not sure on that one. Wheatland West Fire Department, and Mike Hager, Hazar Fire Department.
And we'll just let Michelle be Michelle instead of Michael. Any questions or discussion? And thank you for tackling that. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.48.
Point of order, should we go 2.47?
Oh, yes, again, my apologies. Yes, 2.47, Economic Development Developers Alberta 2022 Leaders Summit and Conference.
This, I brought this forward, or I'm bringing this forward. A couple of years ago, or a year ago, joined the Economic Developers as a member. I've been receiving information from them for a while now. So unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to the RMA because of the timing with my work. So I'm wanting to ask council if I could join this conference. In April, it'll be a little bit slower for me, so I'll be able to attend this one. It is a 3-day conference. I've kind of put in for 2, thinking that I could do 2 days. The conference is April 6th to the 8th. I don't know why they say 3-day, but there would be conference and then there's a dinner. Unfortunately, the problem is that the hotel, it is in Kananaskis, and the hotels are a little bit pricey. So I've got the hotel listed at $862.23, and the conference at, with the dinner is $677.25. So I'd like to attend this through my being on the Committee of Economic Development for 4 years. Now that that committee has folded or not necessary anymore, I still have a large interest in economic development, and I think it would be advantageous for myself to go. I can learn. I believe I would benefit from it. And not being able to go to the RMA, I would like to ask for permission to go to this one. Any? Go ahead.
Do you want to put a motion on the floor, or would you like?
So I'll move the motion that that council approve the attendance for myself to the Economic Development's Alberta 2022 Leaders Summit and Conference, April 6th to the 8th this year.
Any questions or discussion? I think it's a great idea. I think you'll bring a lot of really good information back, and it's identified in our strategic plan as one of our top priorities is some of, things related to economic development, investment attraction, things like that. So I know you've done really good work on it historically, and I think to be able to bridge that and bring that back to council would be excellent.
Great.
Have we done this, have we got precedents? Have we done this before?
No, it's never been, and actually, before I joined up with it, I didn't know about this conference. I'm sure the conference has been going on for a while, but
But we've never sent anyone before.
I
Okay.
have not.
Never had a board either.
Right.
Right.
The economic
3
board
years, maybe,
was new too, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that just helps me because I don't have the background.
Yeah, it was.
It's been a relatively new priority area for council, I would say.
Okay, thanks.
Relatively. There is certainly well within our policies, there's provision for any councillor to bring forward. I would consider this a learning opportunity for Councillor Bigger and value to be brought back to council. So definitely fits within that, I would think. Any other questions or discussion? And just for clarity, so the motion would approve the conference registration, per diems, mileage, and lodging.
Yeah.
Perfect. All in favor? Motion is carried. Now we will move to 2.48, Hamlet Community Facilities Funding Grant Program Policy Review.
Good morning, Council. Dave Rhymes from Administration. The report is for the Hamlet Community Facilities Funding Grant Program Policy Review. This was a new policy last year the Council approved, and they asked to be brought back for a review to see how it went. Some background is in 2020, the Community Regional Infrastructure Services Program ended, and that funding ended for the two hamlets of Gleason and Carsland and the facilities that those community groups operated in those hamlets. So this policy was to distribute funding to kind of replace the CRIS funding program. So attached is a policy. The administration is not recommending any changes at this time, and is asking council to review the policy and accept for information. I can answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
I guess I'm just curious about how it all got decided back in the day for Carsland and Gleason. Like, why them and not others? I'm curious, I guess.
It was before my time, but I believe from reading through the file, funding was granted to the town and the villages first, and then the hamlets kind of said, what about us? We have facilities as well. So that's kind of how it kind of evolved, and those agreements were put in place through consultation with those groups and the county at that time.
So like Clooney has a hall I guess they're meant to use the CURB program. Why wouldn't the CURB program fund these? I guess
So if I recall correctly, this was something I believe Councillor Eichert initially had brought forward for council consideration. And it was with respect to some of the larger hamlets and sort of and Councillor Eichert can correct me if I'm getting the rationale behind what he brought forward, but what I recall the rationale was we were doing specific funding for the villages in the town, and yet we had distinct communities within Wheatland County who we directly represent who were not seeing the same level of funding and the same consistency in funding. So the challenge with CURB is the lack of consistency and the fact that they would need to apply. I love the model of CURB and the fact that we have that board and the insight that they bring and the work that they do on behalf of the county in prioritizing projects. But this was looking at some more sustainable funding for those larger hamlets. There was discussion, if I recall, around looking at perhaps other larger hamlets within Wheatland County, particularly going to the future. I believe that was some of the rationale for bringing this back at this 1-year mark for review, just to see how is this working. Part of the rationale is, as councillors, we don't represent the villages or the town, but we enter into cost-sharing agreements with them. And we felt that it was important that as representatives of communities within Wheatland County that we're also funding some of the activities there, fully recognizing that there are a multitude of other sort of facilities that provide great value to the communities throughout Wheatland County. But I think it was more, and anybody else jump in if I'm not recollecting correctly, but it was more the scale of sort of projects that were being done and sort of ongoing costs for those projects, and a consideration to funding those consistently is how I recall it. Is that how other people recall? Councillor Kester?
I believe at the time, Gleason had an urgent need for their arena, and we funded up to $2 million in that project. I don't think that much was spent, but the ice plant and the roof were in dire need. And Carsland, I don't know if it was their outdoor rink or their hall, there was something that was kind of funded through that too. So I see in this policy there's no the budget amount, but I agree with, we have other hamlets in the county that as need arises they should be included, and it could come to council, you know, what the project is. Funding for halls for power and stuff, I'm thinking is still included in the CURB grants. I think that is covered off. I think this is for more for major projects that are happening in the hamlet, or in the county. I would be in favor of including all the hamlets as projects come forward and funding them. Knowing that they're mostly one-offs. You have a major program and it should be good for years to come, right?
That makes sense to me, that it's kind of based on, you know, a significant need that's identified in the region. That totally makes sense to me. I just think that we should consider where the needs are, I guess, on an annual basis, and not, keep it to a specific area, but to where the need is. Also, this might not be a politically correct thing to say, but have we ever talked to Strathmore about them helping us with some funding, given I'm sure that Gleason Arena is widely used by Strathmore residents?
Yeah, we absolutely have. In the sort of historical context, our councils had met jointly. That was certainly raised, that there are both facilities and other infrastructure that Wheatland County funds. Even if you look at our capital budget, there's substantial capital investments that have been made into our transportation system, which of course urban neighbors utilize maybe to commute or for business activities, that type of thing. Those are substantial financial commitments that we make, and those have been raised. There's certainly been ongoing conversations about, just in reference, for example, to the Glacian Arena, to sort of the regional infrastructure that's in place specifically to recreation, but there's others as well, that certainly urban residents, both from the town and the villages, would take advantage of. I know there's wide use of the arena sort of within the region. Those are important conversations, and of course some of those we fund more directly and some more indirectly through CURB and that type of thing. So I think it is really important that we keep that context around any conversations that we're having with any urban neighbors. And, you know, there are operational costs as well to maintain, for example, the transportation infrastructure that we build to upkeep that and maintain it and keep it operational throughout the year. And that's a significant investment that I think at times is underestimated, the importance of that. So very, definitely valid point. Councillor Eichert.
To my way of thinking, what I thought this was is if, for instance, if Cheadle comes up with a, sort of, like Glenn said, sort of a one-off, there's got to be some way that we can support them to doing this, and this follows in. The fact that they're not named, I don't think is important. If they come up with something that is deemed to be important enough that then it just sort of gets added to it. So that's sort of the way I envision this going forward, and it's sort of working. So,
Councillor Bigger.
So I know that Carsland has a very big project coming forward. So if 200 is allotted, is that the max that is coming out of there? Or last year, or do you have to apply, right?
Yes, through the REEF. Sorry, I wasn't sure if Councillor Priest was going to mention something. But yes, so through the MGA, if there's $200,000 budgeted, then the maximum that administration can implement through this program is $200,000 on an annual basis. That doesn't stop council from either increasing the budget in future years or passing a resolution outside of the budget to include an additional amount. I was actually just checking the budgets to actuals on the Wheatland Community Fund in 2021, and we had spent $90,749. So we're under about $110,000 just on this year.
So that can be used still?
It definitely can be. However, it does need to be approved by council when that is done. So right now, that fund, because we don't allocate it to reserve or anything like that, there is no reserve set up for this. It kind of just gets rolled into unallocated surplus at the end of the year. So the money just kind of stays within the county at this point. But it's up to council direction on what council chooses to do with those funds.
And when do these applications come in?
They're due at the end of March.
Okay. I'm sure they know that, but I didn't know the date.
Yeah, I've followed up with the group on it as well. And just talking to them, I think we'll have more applications and larger applications this year, just from my sense of talking with them as well.
Any other questions or discussion? Yeah, I'm just going there. So at this point, the recommendation is just that council review and accept as information.
I can make that motion.
Councillor Bigger has moved that council accept the policy as information. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.49. Local RCMP detachment updates.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, members of council, and Chris for the administration. Just here to go through the local Rcmp detachment updates for quarters 3 and quarter 4 for Bassano, Gleason, and Strathmore. After having a quick look at them, it looks like obviously quarter 3, and I'm not sure if their quarters are the same if they run. My understanding is their fiscal year is April to March, so it may be based on those, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'm going to clarify with detachment commanders next time I speak to them. The statistics are pretty self-explanatory, and I'm just here if anybody has any questions I may be able to answer.
Any questions regarding the quarterly updates? Officer Perman, would there be value in reaching out to the 5 detachments and seeing if we can kind of align when we bring the reports in? And my thinking behind that is just like the ability to look at sort of the county as a whole, aggregate that data on a quarterly basis and look at trends.
That is definitely something that I will look into, ma'am. And we'll make sure it happens.
If council thinks there's merit, just because we have 5 detachments that serve the county, sometimes it's challenging to pull up like the different detachment reports and just sort of compare trends for the same time period. And I know how busy they are, and that can be challenging as well, but it might be helpful for us just as we're reviewing those trends.
If I may, through the reeve, we do have excellent detachment commanders, and we have a really good working relationship with them, so I'm sure we can come up to something.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments? A motion to accept for information?
Also move.
Councillor Eichert has moved. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for your time today.
We'll move to 2.410, Development Permit 2022-004. Good morning.
So this application is for a light industrial business for window and door assembly facility. If you go to the location plan on page 177 of the agenda, you'll see the location, and it is about 18 kilometers east of Hazar on the County of Newell boundary. Circulation map is on page 177. We circulated to adjacent landowners within a mile of the application. We didn't receive any responses. Agency circulation was completed to the County of Newell, as this application is within the IDP area. And their response was that the parcel in question is surrounded by agriculture parcels in the County of Newell. In addition, the proposed facility will be located north of the existing facility, and the business doesn't create a nuisance, therefore the County of Newell has no concerns. We did an internal circulation, and the Wheatland County Manager of Operations said an approach will be required unless they plan to utilize the existing access from the neighboring lot. And the applicant responded that the business will share the existing approach utilized by the plastics recycling facility and will be adding a second approach off of Range Road 175 towards the north end of the proposed building. Regarding water and sewer servicing, if the applicant chooses to drill under the road and install new lines, this would fall under the road crossings policy, and they will have to submit drawings for approval and obtain an access and work agreement. Line installation will have to align with policy requirements. The applicant response was the only water required for this facility will be for the washroom and coffee room. The facility will tie into the existing water supply and sewage located on the residential area of the colony, either by using the existing lines which run under Range Road 175 and currently service the plastics recycling facility, or by installing new lines under the road and going through the proper procedures. The Deputy Regional Fire Chief did suggest, or actually advise, that they will require a fire inspection prior to commencing operations. On page 179, we can see some aerial photos. On June 4th, 2019, council did approve the redesignation of 313 acres from Ag General and 5 acres of subdivided industrial general land to the direct control DC-17 district to accommodate the existing plastics recycling facility and future light industrial uses. So this proposal is for a light industrial business for the assembly of windows and doors. They intend to build a 16,000 square foot building to be located north of the plastics manufacturing. There's no assembly activities or storage that will occur outside the building. Components such as PVC profile, steel hardware, and finished glass will be purchased and used in the assembly process and not manufactured on site. So they don't anticipate any hazardous waste, noise, or nuisances. It is anticipated there will be 2 to 3 customers per week in the summer with fewer in the winter, and they will park on the southeast corner of the building. Page 181 has some photos of the existing plastics manufacturing facility just to show that it is very, very tidy. Some considerations: the approved redesignation of the property indicates support in principle for a portion of the lands to be used for light industrial purposes. There's no residential dwellings within close proximity of the proposed facility other than those occupied by the landowners. No concerns were raised from surrounding landowners through the circulation or internally, and the County of Newell has no concerns. In conclusion, the recommendation from staff is found on page 171. We are recommending approval of a light industrial business, and we've added conditions for a fire inspection, a new road approach, and for the crossing agreement under Range Road 175. On page 175 of the agenda has the standard 3 options for council to consider. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council approve DP 2022-004 for a light industrial business, window and door assembly facility, subject to the conditions outlined.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
They're already building the windows and doors anyway.
We'll move to 2.411, Development Permit 2022-006.
Thank you. This application is for an employee dwelling. The location plan can be found on page 189 of the agenda package, and it is on the site of the existing golf course lands within the Lakes of Muirfield. So we can see the little rectangle there. It's on the 170-acre parcel that includes all the golf course lands. On the same page, we can see the circulation area where we circulated to the entire development of Lakes of Muirfield, the Lyalta Hamlet residence, and adjacent on the west side of Range Road 265 as well. On page 193, I had created a map showing where our circulation responses were located, just to get some perspective. And at the time of the report, I had 9 letters in support. And since then, there were an additional 5 submitted, which I think some of them were added to the appendices and some were emailed, provided to you. A 4th one was submitted after the deadline, so that one wasn't included. And then we had another one yesterday who had originally been opposed, changed his mind, her mind, and submitted one in support instead. So at the time of completing my report, there were 4 in opposition. One of them has submitted a second letter, and then of course we have the one that recanted and changed to support position. So in total, 14 in support, 3 in opposition. The agency circulation, we circulated to the WID. They had no concerns. Prior to the application being submitted, the applicant had called me to discuss, the process, and I suggested they call IBI Group because this was not typical, and IBI Group being a ready-to-move home, it was already constructed, so the architectural controls, I wasn't sure, but IBI Group deferred to the Homeowners Association for their, to say that we'll do whatever the Homeowners Association said. The Homeowners Association was circulated, and they said that they would remain neutral and not provide a position for or against. In the internal file review, the manager of technical services advised that there is a 200 millimeter water line that runs from Muirfield Crescent into the golf course property. And so as this line is within the private property, it is considered a service line, and all Wheatland County will require is that the new connection is metered. A septic system or field will not be allowed for the new dwelling, as the maintenance yard already has a system that will connect to county infrastructure. This was discovered after the fact. We found some technical drawings and also did a site inspection and found that there was a sewer line there, but it's not currently connected. So the applicant will be required to tie into the existing service line on their property with a tank and pump. On page 191, go back, we have just the site plan and aerial photo. So in January 2020, a land use bylaw amendment was approved to allow an employee dwelling in the DC4, cell 4 of the DC7 district. And then in February of that year, a development permit was approved by council for an employee dwelling to be located on the upper floor of the clubhouse. And this was to be used by the owners rather than traveling back and forth to Calgary when they worked long hours on the golf course. The owners now wish to have a private dwelling near the maintenance building, since they do a lot of work on the irrigation and near that, in that area. So the proposal is to move on a new 1,700 square foot ready-to-move home onto the maintenance building lands. And there is an illustration on page 192 of the proposed dwelling. Some things to consider. Cell 4 within the DC7 district is to provide for accessory buildings and uses for the golf course development, and was amended to include employee dwelling as a discretionary use in 2020. A modular dwelling, which includes a ready-to-move home, is an option listed within the definition for employee dwelling. The land use bylaw does not list a density maximum within the DC district for an employee dwelling. However, it does list one for a second residence on a parcel that is 80 acres or greater if it was an agricultural parcel. So we use this density as a guideline. And since the parcel is 170 acres, we thought 2 would be acceptable on that parcel. The proposed dwelling employee aligns with policies and objectives outlined by the MDP, providing a resource to assist with the efficient operation of an existing private recreational facility. The development will connect with the municipal servicing, and the visual appearance of the maintenance yard is expected to be enhanced. The majority of responses received were in support of the application. So on page 182, we have staff's recommendation, and that is to approve this application. Improve the employee dwelling with the conditions as noted, which include tying into municipal servicing, controlling waste and debris during the construction phase of the development, and ongoing maintenance and lawn care of the yard as with any residential lot. Council has the 3 standard options on page 186 to consider. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Laprise?
All right. So I'm just curious. So they don't want to buy a property that's already in the development of Muirfield, or?
Through the Reeve, no, they did not want to do that. They thought it would be better for them to be near the maintenance yard where all the irrigation system is inside the building, plus all their equipment for working on the golf course, and they already own the land. So rather than purchasing a whole new lot and building a new dwelling, they thought this would be the better option.
So then a follow-up, what would happen, do you know, if they were to sell the golf course? What would happen to the house? Would they? I just wouldn't want it to be abandoned, I guess, is what I'm just thinking. What, would they remove the house, or would they try to sell the house, or I don't know. It's kind of a...
I guess that would be up to their discretion. It would be allowed to stay on the land as far as we're concerned. But they did mention, because that kind of came up in some of the responses about them abandoning the house, but they said we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they had no intention of that.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
So with this proposal, the first employee dwelling that we allowed would stay as well?
Yes, their hope is to rent it out to perhaps the chef or somebody that works on the golf course.
Okay. And then there was mention of a water line that was going into the current site, and is it currently being used at all?
No, it's not being used.
Okay. So then my following up after Shannon's question there. So because I always try to think long term in this stuff. So 20 years down the road, 5 years down the road, it sells, and a new owner says, well, we don't want to use that for an employee dwelling. We want to rent that out to John Q. Public. Would that open the door for that?
It is not supposed to be used for anybody other than employee according to the definition. So I guess if we had word of that, we would have to investigate and enforce against that.
Thanks.
Councillor Bigger.
My question is, when you said that they wanted to do a move on, aren't they still in the Lakes of Muirfield land? Shouldn't they have to do the same? You have restrictions on what to build. It has to be a stick build.
Yes, that's correct. In most of the residential cells in Muirfield, that's not an option, a moved-on dwelling. But within the definition for employee dwelling itself, it does allow for a modular dwelling, which we include RTMs as modular dwellings. So it is allowed in the definition. That's the only cell that allows for an employee dwelling. So it's a bit of it's different than the rest.
I did just want to note on the record as well, there were concerns raised, like around if it becomes unsightly or in disrepair or that type of thing. I do just want to, I was reminding myself that we do have our nuisance and unsightly property bylaw as well, which could be enforced if there were sort of unsightliness issues.
One other question, I guess, is the resident intending to live year-round or just when the golf course is operational? Do we know that?
They didn't say. I think mostly they would live there in the summer months, and then I think it's an option. I don't think it will be their only residence. I think they plan to share their living arrangement.
Well, I've got a question to administration. This already has an employee dwelling, right? So what happens if they, and you said that it was, they were going to rent it to a chef or something? On either one of these projects, what happens if they just decide to rent it to anybody? Like, how do we enforce that? Like, I mean, I could say, yeah, he's an employee because he picks up my laundry every fourth Saturday, but he actually has another job that he drives back and forth to Calgary on, right? I'm just wondering how, I mean, I think we're opening up a can of worms here. I cannot imagine that this would happen in the city of Calgary on any golf course. If they had where their maintenance shop is, that they'd be allowed to put a house there. I'm sort of surprised that the HOA hasn't spoken one way or the other, because if they're fine with something that's going to theoretically change the overall look of the subdivision, I'm a little surprised at that. So is there any mechanism that we have to enforce? I mean, it's not our job, and it'd be a horrible job to go knock on the door and say, "Excuse me, do you work for the golf course?" Like, and we should not be putting our staff into that situation, is in my opinion. So, like, this is all fine and dandy with the people that are there, because the people that are there are good. But as Councillor Clausen alluded to, what happens when it gets sold and some multinational decides to buy the golf course up, and then they don't need those units for what they're going to use them, and they just rent them out to anybody. And then we're sort of in that situation where, how do we enforce that at that point?
Oh my gosh. I won't even speak to how well rested I am today. My apologies. Question to administration. Would it be possible, recognizing that we're considering a development permit within a direct control district, to put a time limit and then require reapplication on an ongoing basis to address some of the concerns of what could happen potentially in the future? I completely agree with Deputy Reeve Clausen and Councillor Eichert. Practically, enforcement on this could be challenging. I can foresee potential issues with this. I'm imagining all of my children who have worked at golf courses congregating, like I'm imagining 10, I'll just be really blunt, teenage boys, like using this as a home or a part-time home while they're working there. There's one consideration I had that does differentiate this from like a City of Calgary golf course, and that's proximity to sort of diversity of housing, if you will. So City of Calgary, it may be easier to draw employees who live proximal to golf courses there, whereas they're, and I don't know if they draw a lot of employees from within the community, but there's not the diversity of housing stock, if you will, because of the context of the community of Lakes of Muirfield. My last question, so my question was around a timeline. My second question was, does the HOA have any ability to enforce within the direct control district? And I just don't know enough about their own internal bylaws. If there were other nuisances, like aside from, for example, our nuisance and unsightly, I guess we also have our noise bylaw, which we're reviewing, which we may be able to integrate something into that. I'm just thinking other issues that could arise from a dwelling like this. And I forget who referenced it, Councillor Eichert or Deputy Reeve Clausen, thinking worst case scenario, not thinking the current context, but if this devolved into a negative situation. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
So I always try to remove myself from the people that are here because I know these people and I know employees that work there, and I want to state that publicly. So when I look at this, I think, what do the adjacents say? And the one that's most affected by it, that had an acreage there before this development was even there, is not excited about this. He has his own little area, and if anybody's been by there, it's very secluded and very treed and very nice. There's a lot of people that have support for this that say that it's going to clean it up. To me, that's a separate issue, because if people are unhappy with this, the tidiness of that area, we have enforcement measures that can deal with that, and all it takes is a complaint, and we will move forward with that. So I take it now, what about what it looks like? We have a whole development that is stick-built, has been, was approved prior to me being here by councillors, and that was the development. Now we have something that's ready to move and it's direct control, so it's here, so we're dealing with it. So I struggle with that, to be honest. There's numerous lots that are for sale within the subdivision, and financially wise, that's of no concern to me. If it's financial for that person or not, my concern is what this development is going to look like in the future. So that's what I'm dealing with and struggling with.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of considerations.
I just have one comment regarding the definition itself. That definition applies to any employee dwelling on any industrial or commercial lot. So we're using it in the same way. Anybody could rent those dwellings out to anybody. We don't know. We don't have a lot of them that have permits that I'm aware of, but we just don't know that. But if we did get a complaint, as with any other enforcement, it's on a complaint basis, then we would look into it. But I think we have the ability to do a temporary permit. Our land use bylaw allows us to do a temporary permit. I think that's an option.
And if 20 years down the road, they want to subdivide that and sell it, because it's not a stick-built home, that development or that subdivision could be refused.
I think it would be considered legal non-conforming if it was legal at the time it was done, and then typically that's what happens with a subdivision. If it was legal at the time there was a building on there and was constructed, and then they subdivided and made it illegal.
But if it's only being approved as an employee building, wouldn't you be hard pressed to subdivide it from the employer?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Or we could do a change of use potentially. Sherry?
Excuse me, Sherry Bars with Planning. The issue with subdivision, even if it, as Suzanne had referred to it, it becomes non-conforming, legal non-conforming. The issue is that it could still get approved. It would be difficult to change that. It would be at council's discretion, but we would also require, it's not so simple to subdivide. They would have to amend the DC bylaw. So there are public hearing steps they would have to go through to try to bring it into some sort of compliance. So they just couldn't go to subdivide the dwelling off. So that's one avenue that there's some checkpoints. And then as far as we were speaking about temporary use, the concern with doing that is that even though it's moved on, they put it on a foundation, and you can still move it like any house, but it becomes almost a permanent structure that we're trying to put a temporary use on. And what we were speaking before is usually the development permit, the minute in any industrial use, should they change the purpose, the use of that building, they have to apply for a new development permit for the change of use. And that would be the other way. It's just that, again, you're talking about a dwelling that you're changing it to what kind of use. It's dwelling, and it's hard to retrofit that, to change it to an office so it comes with some issues that aren't straightforward.
Any other questions? Council's wishes?
I guess.
Being that I have to agree with Councillor Eicher, this is a can of worms that we're opening up here. My gut's telling me this isn't the right thing for the community. I know that adjacent that's to there is not happy with this at all. I have to look to who lives around there and how it was. If it was a stick built or an addition to a building, it'd be something different. And then we do have lots for sale, so I don't support this. I'm going to take a lot of heat for that. But I'm doing what's best for the area. So I'll put the motion that option 2, that the proposal or recommendation is not accepted and or approved.
Questions or discussion?
I have a question. If it was a application for a stick build, would that change your thoughts?
I'm just going to deal with what's in front of me now. Ideally, to me, I would think that the lots that are existing within the hamlet that are all set up for this would be used for that. It's not a far distance to drive anywhere within there to go to a maintenance yard. A golf course is allowed within that community to drive around. There's pathways everywhere to get to there, so it's irrelevant, the distance.
I agree. I think they've developed lots there for a reason. I think that's where they want people to live. I think we should kind of support the intent.
And it's nothing against the people, it's the use. It's just, I'm thinking down the road, and I'm thinking we have several other municipalities that have had golf courses that have been reprivatized. And I can drive one in Calgary that's full of houses, and those people bought there and did not want to have that, and they lost that. That could be something in the future here, and
Does that community start with an agrarian term?
So, that's my motion. I'll live with it.
Not speaking to your motion, but I will apologize that I stated like 10 male employees. It could also be female employees. My context was my 4 sons who have all worked at golf courses, and my daughter has not, but there's nothing stopping young women or older women or men or anybody from working at a golf course. So just to clarify, I take no strong position on gender employees. My apologies.
I just want to remind council that I will need a specific rationale for the refusal if it is approved.
Now, if I may, I'm just wondering, we're at 10 to 12, and I know it's always better if that's a well sort of developed rationale for a refusal. So I'm wondering if we might want to break for lunch, and the motion is on the floor. We can come back to the matter, further discussion following a lunch break. So, Councillor Kester.
In regards to a letter or points for refusal, this is a direct control district. It's not appealable, is it? So why do we need to have reasons? Just to placate, or?
The MGA says that when you refuse an application, you have to have reasons for refusal.
Even in a direct control? Interesting.
Question to administration. There's nothing precluding us from breaking if we have a motion on the floor.
Nope, we've done that before for sure.
Okay. Yes.
If we adjourn. Not
adjourn, but we'll just recess.
Okay, we'll recess.
I mean, we can adjourn, like, we could be done. Let's go till 12:45. That will give some time just to, well, it'll give us some time to eat. Maybe I'll have a nap. Just joking. We'll reconvene at 12:45. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for your patience.